Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, desolate serfs, peasants, vassals, minions, pink sacks. I'm a useful idiot. I'm a useful idiot? Yes, I'm a useful idiot. And today I'd like to talk about nuclear bombs. And it seems rather odd. We're going into the second decade of the 21st century, and we're still talking about spending hundreds of billions of dollars on nuclear bombs. And this is comes out because the Congressional Budget Office just announced that new plans are for $355 billion to be spent on upgrades in our nuclear weapons arsenal over the next 10 years. And seems like a lot of money in this day and age. Certainly, though, there are those who justify it by saying we need to counter Russia and China. But it seems to me that what we have is sufficient. And if we need to upgrade, it seems rather shocking that it costs $355 billion over the next 10 years. But it gets worse than that, because when you look at the little numbers a little closer, it starts to get a little more disturbing. So we take $355 billion over the next 10 years, and this is broken down into $136 billion for the modernization and maintenance of submarines, bombers, and missiles. And then it's $105 billion for weapons labs, weapons, and naval reactors. So it starts getting a little vague. And then $56 billion for command and control systems. And then the best part is expected growth in the cost of the programs is just tagged on another $60 billion. So in spite of all the bureaucracy, in spite of all the mathematicians and accountants, in spite of all these experts, they can't really even get it in the ballpark of $60 billion, knowing that it's going to increase. So they just immediately stick that in there to compensate. And but it's interesting because last year an estimate about how much it would cost over 10 years was $208 billion. So just since last year, they've added another $150 billion. It's nearly doubled the cost just since last year. So how accurate do you think these numbers are going to be stretched out over the next 10 years, especially when they already admit that the cost will keep increasing? So, but there's more. Another aspect of this is that these numbers don't include what they call legacy costs of nuclear arms, just the basic maintenance of the arsenal that we have already, aside from the upgrades, and that includes missile defense and arms control. That's another $215 billion over the next decade. So you put those two numbers together, and right there you have $570 billion over the next 10 years for this nuclear weapons program. And let's say they were off. It nearly doubled from last year to this year. What if it didn't quite double? What if it only increased 50% year after year? We're still talking about a couple of $1 trillion over the next 10 years. And this makes sense because this is how the economy in the United States is sustained. All this spending going into our GDP and keeping the military-industrial complex and everybody involved and associated fat and happy with government money, or as we like to think of it, taxpayer money. And not surprising at all that Obama's official position on nuclear weapons is that he favors eventually eliminating atomic weapons. Well, as my dad used to say, you sure have a funny fucking way of showing it. Because if you want to eventually eliminate atomic weapons, you don't really spend $1 trillion or more dollars over the next 10 years making more. And in spite of what they say about modernization of bombs, delivery systems, and laboratories, I'm sure that's a huge chunk of it, but there will be new technology developed, I'm sure. It's just the nature of the beast. This isn't, and also this money will also go to replace missile submarines and long-range bombers. So we'll be creating more World War II, Cold War era weapon systems to fight China and Russia in some unforeseen future. And the other thing that's interesting about this is that, as far as I know, this is all a separate budget. It's a nuclear weapons budget and not part of the military budget. So this isn't even including just the defense spending in general. So you'd think this would be included in our defense spending costs. So when you factor this in with our defense spending, our military budget obviously is much, 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 much larger than is generally bantered about when we have budget discussions. So there you have it. Gigantic nuclear industry, weapons industry in the United States continues to expand, and you get tons of hundreds of billions of federal money over the next 10 years and for the foreseeable future. So you decide if you think that's money well spent. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.